Mate. So yeah, Ash. So obviously, a lot of good things happening for you guys. Venom Prison at the moment. How are you feeling? How are you feeling in yourself? Obviously, you can't speak to for the other members of the band, but how are you feeling at the moment? How's things going?
I'm quite optimistic for it. I think everything we've got brewing in the background and everything we've been working on and planning and organizing, it's all starting to unfold now a little bit. And, it's kind of leaking itself into the world bit by bit. And it's really exciting, but we've done a lot more this time round, like a lot more, what's the right content, if that's what you want to say. Because obviously with the climate and everything, we thought it's going to be wise if we back all this stuff up just to support Erebos, and we want to do a few more creative things along the way to support it, which will kind of all interlink. But I think it'll be an exciting album cycle. I do.
Man, it's an exciting sounding record. And before we talk a little bit about some of the songs on it, I want to ask you, because again, different people have different answers for this, but I want to ask you how you define success as a person, because Venom Prison, again, the way the world sees it and the way you see it, very different things. But how do you define success as a person, and what does it mean to you?
Do you know what? This has always been, it's weird you ask that, because this is always a question that I always have on my mind, or it's always a question that we have a discussion with like mates and stuff. And like, what does define it, if you know what I mean? Like, I think for me, I only ever just wanted to try and do, the best I could and serve it the best I could. I don't know where I don't know where it will take me. I don't know, but that's the intention of how this band was started. It was just to kind of do a couple of demos and kind of just get some shows. And then one thing led to another. And then I think it just got to the point where everyone was like, let's just ride it out. So to be fair, like, even if it was to, I'm not saying anything, but even if it was to end today, I would probably deem that it's done well. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think success always needs to be the most glamorous and most polished life to kind of feel success. Sometimes it's just that achievement of kind of ticking something off a list that you've always kind of wanted to do. So I kind of have this grounded idea of how I feel about success. Like, it's imagined in different ways, I know, but if for me, a Lamborghini or a mansion doesn't really define success if you're not happy with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's an interesting word to use there, happy and stuff. Obviously, again, making beautiful music and music that strikes a chord with people, that's intense, that's like brutal, but also beautiful in equal measure. That makes, listeners happy. But would you describe yourself as a happy person?
Yeah, I am in certain aspects. I think sometimes even just knowing things that go on every day and all that, like, it's enough to kind of make anyone feel gloomy or a bit. And you know what I mean? All you have to do is just take a look at the world and you're like, whoa, like that.
Yeah, man, yeah.
But I think you have to find it. You can't always have that in the forefront all the time. There's got to be some mindfulness for yourself. You've got to kind of take that step back and understand what you're doing is your path. No one's going to do the same one as you, so there's no point trying to follow someone else's.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about that, the path there, again, you can't speak for the other members of the band here, but how would you say you've changed and developed? Because obviously Venom Prison's dynamic has changed and developed. The mission statement of the band is probably developed, but you yourself, how would you say you've changed and developed as a person through the music you've made with Venom Prison from the beginning? I guess from your beginnings as a musician, not necessarily in Venom Prison, but when you started making music and started being in that zone to where you are now, how have you changed and developed?
It's so hard to it's hard to define, really, if I'm honest. Like, I think for me it's always a constant. And this is also a bad thing that I'm about to say, which is I've only realized this recently, that's why. And it's kind of like, I'm always so focused, I'm always ready to go next. And I'm never thinking about like your question, I'm not thinking about that, I'm thinking about what's next. But that being said, over the lockdown period, like, reflection kind of came into play, and looking at things like on my hard drive and stuff from like tours, and I'm thinking, whoa, that's pretty fucking cool. Like, you know, and just having that moment to kind of step back for a moment and just be like, all right, everything ahead of me looks a bit grey at the moment, but some good shit's happened as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, let's like remember that, for example, because that'll come back. Nothing's changing really. It'll come back. It's just not now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely, man. Yeah. So again, it's kind of focusing on the fact that even though things get a bit, you know, intense sometimes, there are a lot of good things that have happened and will be happening for you and the band as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for most people's lives, you know, like I think that's like kind of the way it works. I just think you kind of have the rough, and that is just the way it goes. Everyone's rough's a bit different than everyone else's. So it's completely natural, I think. But to kind of use it in a, you know, a cathartic outlet such as Venom Prison is why I think people that do connect with Venom Prison get it on a very similar level. It's a very it's a very grounded band. We've always been very, you know, both feet on the ground type band. Like I don't think we've ever taken us out of a bracket to think like, oh cool, we're in this like band or whatever. I think everyone's still always, you know, been down here because it's just, you know, it's the way we've always been, you know, it's always the way we've been. And like I kind of like that, and I think that is what makes it relatable to a lot of people, that this isn't some like, you know, industry machine, if that's what you want to call it. It's Venom Prison, you know.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. And you know, when I was, you know, talking about the catharsis you mentioned there as well, and picking up on that phrase, you know, when I listen to Erebos, you know, there's so much stuff in this record. Again, so much dynamics, or so many dynamics rather, in terms of the sound and intensity. You know, just really, like, again, really intense and beautiful, I think was the phrase I used before. You know, listening to it a couple of days ago, and then listening to it again before this chat. Sonically, it feels like it pushes a lot of people's. I mean, it's like it's an intense listen, but it's also very. I'm trying to think of, again, repeating the same phrase. I do apologize, but there's some wonderful dynamic moments in there, and I think I wanted to ask you how it pushes you in new ways as an artist, because as a listener, when you're taking it in, again, you know, you notice those dynamics, you notice those highs, and just the intensity of the vocals, for example, and obviously the riffs too. But from your perspective as a musician, how do you feel like it pushes you in new ways as an artist?
I think Erebus is for the band, Erebus is a special record. I think Erebus shows something about Venom Prison that I don't think people have ever seen or ever really expected. But I don't think it's too far apart from what people identify Venom Prison as. I think they're now learning that there's a few more additional layers that are being added.
Yeah.
And I think we've always been so, you know, strong on a lyrical theme and, you know, just the characteristics of a song. It's always been very assault and aggressive from the get-go. But I think Erebus is a lot more emotional than that. I think it's a lot more compassionate. It's still an angry record, but I think it's angry for a compassionate reason. And I think the way we would write it is if the mood of when we were writing was that section, you know, it's so hard to pinpoint one, but, you know, that section, for example, that probably was just what we were feeling, you know, like, for example, someone was asking about Comfort of Complicity, and it's got that big twin guitar thing. And like, when me and Ben were at that point, you know, we've always been fans of, like, you know, twin solo metal stuff. I think, you know, people would know that by now from Venom Prison. It's kind of been an ongoing thing, but we've never gone, oh, how do we make it, like, you know, just a bigger version? Like, how do we do this bigger? And it just kind of like, we just ultimately sat there and was like, this is a metal record. Why are we going to box ourselves off to certain limits? Like, it needs that moment to feel those, you know, moments of lyrics and passion. Like, that's kind of how Erebus is treated. If it needed it, it would be given.
Yeah, so there's that intensity, but there's also that space for the words, the vocals, the melodies, the dynamics that I mentioned to breathe. I think that's what I get from it anyway.
Yeah,
So
no, that's totally right. I think, with Erebos, it just gives those moments where it follows themes. It follows, it's kind of like the way I keep going to Comfort of Complicity because it has that really big line of bear witness, and it's that big moment where the
yeah,
vocals just, and then you've got the guitars just like, kind of like howling over it and stuff. And it's just like when we would do it, it would just be like, whoa, that's metal as fuck. Like, it's not about like what it is, it's just that moment's right for that section. And that's how Erebus was treated. It wasn't just, press play, assault, song ends,
yeah, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've got, like I said, I reference tracks like Castigated, Steel and Concrete, and there's obviously other tracks that people have heard, that are out there. Judges of the Underworld, for example. And I think that for me, as a listener, and for other people as a listener, we've got an expectation again of what Venom Prison is, and what I'm hearing is that this is going to Erebos is about not shattering the expectations, not going, you're completely wrong, but just kind of opening it up a little bit, opening the world up to I keep coming back to that word, that dynamic word. I apologize for the repetition, but
no, it's a good word.
the dynamics of Venom Prison, you're opening the world up and saying, we have this intensity, we have this brutality, in the vocals and the riffs, but also there's this space to experience our catharsis, almost like an oral catharsis. We're experiencing as a band, it sounds like you're experiencing catharsis from it, and maybe the listener can get that too.
100%. Yeah, definitely. I think that's kind of what Erebus does, very well from, my perspective of it. And I think it does kind of show that the progression of the band, the evolution of the band, but also it still sticks firmly to the thing we said from day one, which was we'll never write the same record twice.
Yeah.
Animus was that kind of grindcore death metal. Samsara was that technical, brutal, death metal. And then you've got Erebus, which is, in my opinion, probably the most metal record we've ever done. If we're going to tick things off what metal is,
yeah,
it ticks a lot of those boxes. So I kind of feel that we've just stuck to what we said we would do. We kind of, when we did Primeval with the demo and the EP, we put those 2 new songs on there. They were from the pool of Erebus. Like it was just a way to kind of, it was almost just like that. It's just that, it's almost just the progression of Venom Prison record to record, and kind of like Primeval sits there with showing the early days if people had missed it, and then those 2 new songs ready for Erebus to come. And yeah, I think it's kind of like we've always expressed that we don't mind changing things.
Yeah,
we don't mind doing that. It doesn't really change the core sound of Venom Prison. Like you can always hear that, Venom Prison sound as such.
Yeah. You don't fear change in that respect.
No, I really don't. Like I always feel that, if the key is longevity, then it should be, being able to express this band how we would like to express it. I don't want to burn this band out in 2 years writing the same record again and again and again, where we could still be writing records in 10, 20 years if we were still passionate and still doing that, So I think that's what the most important part is. Like, and I think people who are on board with Venom Prison, I think, kind of enjoy that, not just getting the same thing over again. Like it's not as predictable. It's just, the artwork's going to be that package and it's going to look like a Venom Prison record, but you don't quite know how it's going to look this time round. You can't really picture the sound of it because it keeps changing. And it just, from my perspective, I just think that it keeps me interested writing.
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. And I think that there was a lovely bit of a moment in the sort of press text I got through a while back, and it says you feel like, or certainly the band feels like you've exceeded the expectations with Erebos. And I know we've done a lot of reflection on this interview and talk about the past, and I know you were sort of saying you spend a lot of time looking at what's next, and I'm sort of enabling that with this next question. But with you exceeding your expectations with this record and it being something you're fully satisfied with, by the sounds of it, what did you see as your next challenge as a band?
I would like to just start to explore the avenues that we've been highlighting in Erebos. I think that was a big indicator that we were wanting to play around with a lot more of these things in the future. And I don't think we'll ever stray away from something, you know, too much to the point where people can't identify it. But I think we'll definitely try and, you know, as you know, naturally as possible. I think that's kind of what my favorite thing about Erebus is, that with all these new additions, nothing sounds forced or battling each other. Nothing fights each other, and it's like there's never moments where you get something new that you haven't heard and you don't sit there and go, oh, that's forcing it. Like it just
it's a space,
happens.
isn't it? It's a space to breathe. I like that. Definitely. I certainly feel that as a listener for sure. I mean, before we finish up and stuff, I wanted to ask you a little bit about, obviously, separate from the music, obviously it's going to be an intense period of time for you guys coming up, obviously, fingers crossed, lots of touring and things like that. Outside of music, then, outside of Venom Prison and the band and the passion that you have for that, what kind of stuff motivates you? What kind of stuff keeps you motivated when you're not making music? What sort of stuff, sort of, whether it's an art inspiration or movies or anything like that, what kind of stuff motivates you, keeps you creatively fulfilled, or just interested, motivated, passions outside of music?
Quite a lot, to be honest. Like quite a lot. Like I am always trying to do undeniably, I always try and do as much as I can. Like just because I've got this weird thing of I'm like, I can't not do this with my day or not do that. So it's like even today, like I sorted a load of like work stuff and then Venom Prison stuff, and then I just went out on the mountain bikes for a bit. Nice. Completely covered in mud, come back, had food, come on here. But then it's like through lockdown I've been working on cars, and I like motorbikes and stuff. So I'm always out on a motorbike or doing something with the cars, or mountain biking. I love video games. I'm a big video game guy. Nice. I do enjoy films and TV, but I feel like I'm very fidgety. I always need to do something. So like playing games stops me from doing that, which I feel like suits my needs a bit more, if that makes sense. If I'm watching like a film or TV, I end up like, if it hasn't grabbed me in 10 seconds, I'm gone. Like I'm on my phone or I'm off doing something. But no, I like to keep as active as possible. I like to, try and enjoy as many things as I can. And I think the creative side of it, I think because Venom Prison takes such a big toll on that, with, a long time writing, and then even like the stuff after you've done the writing, I think it's just nice to kind of just divide that life a little bit and, go and do something like go out with your mates, go out on your motorbikes or mountain bikes or whatever it is you like doing, video games. And just, it only makes you better at what you do when you come back, because I think you give yourself that space, you do. So I think that's one thing that I always try and make sure that I stay on top of,
Yeah, absolutely. Have you got like a top 3 games that you love to go back to?
I'm a massive Final Fantasy nerd.
Nice, yeah, beautiful game.
Final Fantasy 8 is my favorite game ever. I don't know, this is tough because it started to change in the last it always was Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 10, and then like Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, the Metal Gears, yeah.
But ever since I played Nier Automata,
I've not played that. Is it good? Yeah.
I could possibly let it slip past Final Fantasy 8, which has never happened in my life.
Okay, wow. That's really cool.
It's incredible. But yeah, I'd say like it hasn't really changed ever since like Metal Gear and all that. But I do play a lot. Like, funny you mention it. I finished that game, What Remains of Edith Finch.
Oh, I've only seen it. I've not played it, but yeah.
2 hours long, great game.
Nice.
Really good. But no, I gotta be honest, I do play games quite a lot. It's because I just can't watch TV, I just can't do it. Like I just need to do something.
Yeah, you need that focus. You need that like okay, so this is something I'm doing right now, and I'm gonna work on it. Do you find it difficult to come off them, or are you able to break yourself away from it?
Um, no, I'm all right to be honest at breaking myself away. It's just more when I don't have something to do. So it's vice versa for me.
Yeah,
If you put the TV on in front of me, I could be sat downstairs till like 3 in the morning, not watching anything, just kind of just staring at like something that I don't really care about. If I go on a game, I normally get to that bit where I peak and I'm like, I've had a good go tonight. Like, let's come back tomorrow.
yeah, yeah,
Can't do that with TV. I'm just sat there, just like, what am I watching? Like, what's this? But I'm sat there for hours, you know.
yeah. No,
But
I get that, man. I get that for
but
sure. But the Metal Gears and the yeah, like you can come back to those, can't you? Final Fantasy, you can come back to those years later, and they're just beautiful games to behold. So it's lovely to hear about your passion for that as well. You're talking again before we sort of round up. What would be your message then? Again, obviously you've shared your passions outside of music, obviously with Venom Prison, obviously new record coming. What would be your message to the people that have supported Venom Prison, whether they are hardcore fans, death metal fans, whether they've been with you since the beginning? you know, and embraced, every facet of what you're trying to do. And also, what would be your message to people that are just discovering you? Obviously, just trying, just trying you out. Maybe they've seen you heard you on a playlist, or they've, watched your Bloodstock set or anything like that, and they go in, holy, I want to be a part of this band, and I want to be involved in this. So, what would be your message to your supporters, past, present, future, for Venom Prison and be, yeah.
I think anybody who's currently been supporting us, I think without people supporting us, we wouldn't get to the places or the points that we've got to without that support. So it's almost like it's more of a thank you from us more than anything. We just wanted to deliver our art on a platform, and for people to appreciate that piece of art that's on a platform is more than anyone can ask for, if you know what I mean. Like, that is,
Yeah.
you do it for yourself, but for someone to also share that,
Yeah.
that admiring pleasure to it as well is kind of it's a crazy thing.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it?
I think like you don't really get better than that. And I think even for people who are discovering us, like I think we're a band that we absolutely welcome anybody, anybody who wants to kind of support Venom Prison and stuff, and get the ideas of what the band is about and kind of who we are as people and stuff. I think they'll just find out over time, kind of getting to know the band a bit more. I think we've become a lot more open in the last couple of years as a band. I think people are starting to get a bit of an idea more of personality and stuff, and we're just grateful that we've had opportunities to do these things and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I said, it wasn't anything ever forced, or
it became natural to you guys. Yeah,
it just becomes something that we were just doing, and people just admired it as we were doing it, so
yeah,
it's a great thing. It's a great thing, and I think that's what I mean. I think people know that it's not a forced
you're
machine.
not trying to, you're not trying to be something you're not. This is a pure representation of who you are as a group of people and what you're trying to achieve. It's very pure in that sense. It sounds like that to me.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think anyone's ever wanted to be something that we're not, like I don't think anybody's ever cared that, if 10 people know us or 10 million people know us, nothing ever really changed. You know what I mean? Like, I still do the same things every day. I still act the same way. Like, and then when people do compliment us, or like, we'll play a show, or we'll, I don't know, on tour or something, and someone will just like randomly come up and be like, oh, excited to see you later and stuff. And I'm just like, fuck, people know who we are. That's mad.
Yeah,
and
it's
then
awesome, man.
That's all it is, I don't ever, I never take it for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing to hear again that pure, representation of what you tried to do. It has not been diluted in any way. You've had a lot of support from a lot of people, but you've not diluted the original intent of what Venom Prison was trying to be, and also the progression. You're not trying to you're saying you're not trying to repeat the same formula. You're trying to progress and develop, and you've been allowed, by the sounds of it, by fans, by people supporting you, the ability to do that, and that's a beautiful thing, man. It's lovely to
Yeah,
hear.
I think, you know, if we touch on a quick prime example of
Yeah,
that,
please.
is, you know, Pain of Oisies, when we dropped that as single 2.
Yeah, man.
That was a big curveball, you know, for a lot of people who had been following Venom Prison for some time. Like, I don't think, but the fact that nobody batted an eyelid, or I mean, obviously you will have a couple of comments, but nobody batted an eyelid, you know, like that was the most amazing part to it. It was names that were really familiar popping up on, you know, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and they were all just completely on board with the idea, because even I think they knew that regardless of, you know, there may be a little bit less gain on the amps or thing, it still has all the ticks that a Venom Prison song has. It still does, it still has power, energy, it's still brutal, but it just has something new with it. And I don't think we've shied away from, you know, any of these things. And it's good. It's good.
It's beautiful, man. I'm well excited for you. Honestly, I can't wait for it. And I'm so excited to see where you go from here. Before we finish, is there anything you'd like to promote? Anything you'd like to plug? Anywhere you'd like to send people? This is the press and plugging bit of the interview. Plug away. Any projects at all, plus Venom Prison stuff. Where would you like to send people?
I think 4th of February, Erebos is out. And I mean, if people can just be about for that, you know, check it out. The pre-orders are now available, and obviously they'll be available to buy on that date, February the 4th. But I mean, like I said in interviews before, supporting a band doesn't just mean buying something. Sometimes it could be a share, like, comment, tell your mate, you know, do something. It doesn't always have to involve money. Like, you know, even just going on Spotify, I know people got to pay Spotify subscription, but even if they just wake up that day and go, I'm going to check out that Venom Prison song, that's still support, you know, like that is how it works. It doesn't always have to be about money. So if you do, though, it's www.venomprison.com, and it's your choice from there.
Beautiful. Well, I'm super excited for you, man, and I know a lot of people are behind you. So congratulations on everything going forward, and thank you so much for your time, Ash, mate. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me as well. Thank you.